Okay, so design thinking. Yay! We finally made it to, the main subject of the class. At this point, I'm hoping you have a pretty good appreciation or at least an understanding of how and why it's so important to include the user in product development. And also the importance of using a comprehensive process and of including a diverse but capable team in the process. Now we're going to talk a little bit about the methodology that has become so popular over the past years that it has almost reached what I would call buzzword status. Essentially, design thinking is just a snazzy way of saying that we have a recipe for user-centered design. About 20 plus years ago, a couple of folks out of Stanford University really started to make this term popular. Some of the best known champions for design thinking are two fellas by the name of David and Tom Kelly. So these guys are brothers and authors and educators still out at Stanford. And they were some of the founding members of a hugely popular design firm called IDEO. And although we don't have too much time to talk about IDEO here in this video, I do want you to spend some time researching this company. I've provided another video for you to watch as part of this section, and it was produced by ABC Dateline about 20 years ago. So, in fact, it's pretty old. But the storyline and the company and the concepts are really just still as relevant today as they were in 1999 or whenever this came out. In fact, it's a great summary about the company, and also it starts to introduce some of the concepts behind design thinking. So if I were you, I would probably cast this video on your family TV and watch it with the kids. At least that's what I did to my child. And anyway, I think you'll enjoy it. It's an interesting video and one that is, I think, going to fill in some gaps. Anyway, there are other contributors here, and another one I wanted to point out was an author of your book, in fact. It's Tim Brown. Tim Brown is an industrial designer, and he is also, I believe, the CEO at IDEO presently. He's been a huge champion of design thinking over the years, and it's really worth researching some of his other publications. If you're interested, I would also say that there were a number of other significantly influential contributors to this movement that we're not going to talk about in this class. So it's probably worth a bit of Googling to research and understand some of who some of the other players were in this area. So hopefully you read through the nuts and bolts of design thinking's 5-step approach. And at this point, it should not be too surprising, right? The basic premise is that you start by empathizing with the user, and this means that you get out in the field and you watch them and you listen to them complain, and you get a feel for all of the other things that they have going on when they're trying to accomplish this task. And then you come back to the studio and you talk with your team about what you learned in order to better define the problem itself. And here you start to create the project scope. So you're going to identify constraints, and you're also going to identify the requirements of the design based on what you just learned in the field from the users. But you're also going to consider the requirements of your company or the sponsoring agency, sponsoring organization. Next is the fun part, and now you get to come up with the ideas or solutions that you think might meet the requirements you've just identified. There are 100 ways to do this, and I would only say that it's not as freeform as you might think, and we're going to talk about these techniques later on in the class. So once you have an idea, you're effectively ready to prototype it. And this means that you're actually going to create a physical prototype or a mock-up of the product itself or the solution. So it doesn't have to be fancy or 3D printed or anything, designed in AutoCAD. It can really just be made out of cardboard and duct tape, but it has to be real. It has to be tangible, and the users have to be able to use it, even if it's in a limited way. This is because you're going to take this prototype back out into the field and then test it with the same group of users that you observed in the first place. So here you're going to watch them use the product and struggle with your design so that you can improve your requirements and make refinements and start the process all over again. So sounds easy, right? Well, to be honest, I'll tell you, it's really not that hard. In fact, this type of exercise can be a great deal of fun. People honestly get excited about making new things, and people get really excited when they know that they're improving someone's quality of life or someone's experience, and they're making things easier. So at this point, I would recommend that you probably stop this video and go watch the Nightline story on IDEO. If you don't already have a good understanding of design thinking, I think that the 20-minute video will help and will give you a new appreciation for what we're talking about. So once you think you have a good idea of the design process and the mission, come back and we're going to start to talk about some of the nuances involved in the process.